ang maaga namang natatapos na SEM ay yung mga fourth year. Yes, narinig kita, Victor. So can we Can we meet pa ng 2 meetings? One to discuss further yung Philippine-US relations and one to discuss further yung Philippine-Japan tsaka Philippine-European relations. 2 more meetings pa. I don't necessarily have to submit your grades naman very early kasi unahin lang muna yung mga fourth year, no? So, matatapos naman tayo ng July. So, kung mag-meet pa tayo next meeting sa 2+7, that will just be July 9. Tapos, +7 ulit, July 16. Kaya nyo pa rin mag-final exam ng 6+7, 22. Okay? So, 2 more meetings pa. Total, 7 face-to-face pala, 7 synchronous meetings pa lang pala tayo. Okay. Okay, now we will discuss Philippine-China relations. I'll be sharing my screen. Tingnan ko lang, meron to dapat audio Sana. Ayun. I don't know this. Yan. Oh, laksan nyo na lang yung audio nyo, ha? Ito na yata yung nito eh. Kung maririnig nyo. Ayan.
Rinig naman.
All right, the South China Sea disputes. Why is the South China Sea very contentious? Diba? As you have seen in the video, aside from the Philippines, there are other claimants. Diba? So aside from China, China is not just up against the Philippines. It's also up against Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei. There are other claimants, but the largest area is being claimed by China. Okay, so South China Sea is a territorial dispute over a BC waterway. Its goods worth is about $5.3 trillion. That's how large the transaction is that passed through the South China Sea. It is also rich in marine life. It contributes to 10% of the world's fish trade. Natural resources are also abundant there. The U.S. Energy Information Agency estimates that there are around 11 billion barrels of oil, 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserves under the sea, exceeding what some of the world's biggest energy exporters have. So this is not just a territorial dispute. This is actually an energy dispute. Diba? Especially now na yung gas prices are rising, diba? Tapos meron talagang global oil supply deficit. Napaka-importante nung South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea for us. Okay, so I mentioned na ito na yung mga claimants: China, Vietnam, Brunei, Taiwan, the Philippines. So, we have overlapping claims on the South China Sea. Pero China, it is claiming almost the entire stretch. So, okay, so yung Vietnam, meron siyang dispute with China. Sinasabi ni Vietnam, no, 1940s ka lang nag-claim. Hindi totoong nag-claim siya since the 17th century. Wala silang documents na magpuprove. Philippines, we invoke yung ating geographical proximity. It is within our 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone. And it's very near Palawan. We are both claiming China and the Philippines parts of the South China Sea, particularly the Scarborough Shoal. Ang tawag ng China dyan is Wangyan. This is just 160 kilometers from the Philippines, whereas it is 500 miles from China. Diba? Kung proximity lang. Diba? Si Malaysia and Brunei naman, they're claiming parts of the South China Sea. Ganun din ang basis rin nila is it is within their exclusive economic zone. Malaysia claims a small number of islands in the Spratlys. Meron rin tayo overlapping claims naman with Malaysia as regards Spratlys Islands. Sa lahat ng other claimants, si Brunei lang ang walang na-occupy ng maritime features or nag-maintain ng any military presence sa region. Meron din naman mga countries that are not geographically linked to the waterway but they have strategic interest like the US. Kasi ang treatment ng US sa South China Sea, it should be treated daw as an international waters. And gusto ng US, actually not just the US, it includes France, Netherlands, yung mga may mga big shipping lines. They want it to be free from navigation. Si Japan in its race to counter China's growing influence, involved na rin siya, but mostly because of its ties with US. If so many countries claim the waterway, who controls what? So, okay, so under UNCLOS, na state siya, di ba, na merong control ang adjacent state sa territorial sea within 200 nautical miles, and we call that the exclusive economic zone. Where the zones overlaps in some areas, meron silang tinatawag na they just control half of So whatever it is, halimbawa, so between may portion ng Pilipinas and Indonesia na hindi aabot sa 200 nautical miles ang pagitan ng ating waters, hati lang tayo doon. Diba? Hati tayo. So kung hindi mo makukuha yung full 200 nautical miles, hati kayo doon sa water portion. Yung UNCLOS, which was passed in 1982, naka-states dyan na yung areas that do not fall under EEZ should be international waters. It should be shared by everyone and free for navigation. Ito yung ginagamit na provision ng US in stating that yung areas ng South China Sea, which is already outside the 200 nautical miles of any state, adjacent state, dapat free for all na ito. Okay, so under the UNCLOS then, countries cannot claim sovereignty over land masses that are submerged or were submerged but that have now surfaced above high tide level because of illegal construction. Yun yung nilagay yun yung nakalagay dun sa decision din ng UNCLOS. These are not natural land formations because they are merely human-made, yung mga ginawa ni China, So, yung claim natin actually sa West Philippine Sea, we are not claiming the land formations there. We are claiming rights over the waters. So whatever it is that can be found therein, including mga land formations, atolls, the rocks that may be found there, part yun ng ating territory. We are not claiming islands. We are claiming rights over the waters. So if there are clear guidelines, why is it that there's still a dispute, di ba? In 1947, China outlined its claim to the disputed waterway by drawing a map. Yung map na to is U-shaped line covering almost 70% of the South China Sea. They call it the 9-dash line. 9-dash line yan, tapos naging 10-dash line, naging 11-dash line. Pero itong kilala, for the longest time tinatawag nilang 9-dash line, it covered the Paracel, the Spratlys, and over 30 other islands in the region. So, ito yan. Yung sa China, 9-dash line nila na yan. Kung makikita nyo yung nasa loob niyan lahat. Actually, part na talaga ng ating territory. Lahat nung the entire South China Sea kasama na, nasa loob na nung tinatawag niyang 9-dash line. China asserts that it is entitled to more than 200 nautical miles from its shores. At if allowed, it will already overlap with the EEZ of Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei. China says several islands in the stretch were discovered and mapped by Chinese sailors thousands of years ago during various naval expeditions and are integral parts of China. So who is claiming what? Okay, this is a satellite image of the islands, some of the islands in the South China Sea. Itong Paracel na to ay kiniklaim ng China at Vietnam. Vietnam says that they ruled the island since the 17th century, long before China. Kiniklaim kasi ng China 14th pangalaw sila, 14th century. So this is Paracel. This is Scarborough Shoal naman. It is 97 kilometers. It is a chain of rocks. Makikita nyo, lang yan talaga. Yung malaking portion ay itong nasa gitna na yan, water yan. Pero hindi na kasi ganyan ang tsura niyan ngayon. So this was taken the improvements made by China. So 60 square kilometers na chain of rocks and reefs. Ang naglalaban dito is China and the Philippines. The Philippines based its claim on geographical proximity and history, arguing that they have claim over the islands for hundreds of years. Spratlys Islands, it is composed of around 700 reefs, islets, atolls, islands. 6 countries have stake dito sa Spratlys: China, Vietnam, Taiwan, Malaysia, Brunei, and the Philippines. Malaysia and Brunei says the islands are part of their EEZ. Okay, so this is the South China Sea. Yung red, yun yung part ng sa 9 dash line kanina. Yung itong mga blue lines, ito yung exclusive economic zone natin. Itong portion na to, EEZ yan ng Philippines. Makikita nyo, may portion talaga ng EEZ natin na mag-overlap tayo with Brunei and Malaysia dito sa southern tip ng Palawan. So these are where the disputed islands are. So this is the Scarborough Shoal. Ito malapit yan sa, kaya tinatawag natin Baho de Masinloc, malapit yan sa Pangasinan. Tapos ito yung Spratlys, yung pinakamalapit sa Palawan. Para sa wala naman tayong issue dyan, ang kalaban niya ng is Vietnam. Kiniklaim kasi ng Vietnam, it's within its exclusive economic zone, 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone, which is true. Pero mag-overlap na exclusive economic zone nila ng China dahil dito sa portion. This is still part of China, Hainan. So yung portion na yan talaga mag-overlap dyan ng exclusive economic zone ng Vietnam tsaka ng China. So what have the countries been up to on the islands? Ano nang mga nangyayari? All countries except Brunei have carried out some sort of construction that exists in si China outpaced the other players. Diba? Philippines, Vietnam, and Taiwan, we have military presence in some of these islands. China does not acknowledge the UN Convention on EEZ. It has been actively turning coral reefs and submerged land masses into artificial islands. Pinakita natin kanina, this is the Scarborough Shoal. So in 2012, China constructed 7 islands on the Scarborough Shoal that would allow it to monitor U.S. military activity in this stretch. Some U.S. troops are based in the Philippines. So that's why we pursued the matter in the Permanent Court of Arbitrations in The Hague instead of diplomatic channels because China wouldn't want to listen. China continues to deploy large military vessels in the area, so we cannot compete with them. So we went to the Permanent Court of Arbitrations. Okay, so this is the first deep water drilling rig developed by China. In 2014, Chinese and Vietnamese Marine Forces entered into a deadlock when the oil rig drilled near the disputed Paracel Islands in the South China Sea. This is the Fiery Cross Reef. This is part of the Spratlys Island. So ito yung itsura niya before. They are just mga coral reefs, atolls, rocks. Tapos ganito na yung itsura niya noong 2016. Makikita yung rapid changes sa nagkaroon na ng airstrip, nagkaroon na ng meron na kaya na mag-launch ng rito ng military planes. Dito sa Spratlys Islands, it was already militarized. So may giant airstrips na, meron na siyang missile defense systems, and China is already conducting regular patrols, and it drives away non-Chinese vessels. Yes, Taoy?
Hello po ma'am, curious lang po. Would it be possible for Russia to attack US knowing that they are an ally of China? Tapos yung advantage po ng oil deposit ay nasa China. Tapos may mga construction and mga gamit na po sila for defense. And if so, would it trigger World War III po?
Yes, actually, but kung ano theoretical lang if I am Russia and I would want to attack US, hindi na ako dito sa sa West Philippine Sea o sa South China Sea atake. Because yung Alaska is just ilang kilometers away, parang 150 kilometers away lang from Russia. Diba? That's the nearest kung atakihin mo yung US. Diba? Pero importante kasi itong mga airstrips na to kasi remember yung mga naval battles tsaka mga ang tawag dito mga air battles, kailangan mo ng constant fueling areas eh. So ito yung gamit itong mga itong mga areas na to na ginawa niya sa South China Sea. It is capable of yung sobrang lapit niya sa Philippines, kaya niya na talagang monitor ang Philippines from these areas, di ba? Tapos, ang kinatatakutan pa kasi talaga ng US is that maraming mga vessels talaga yung dumadaan dito sa areas na to. So, pwede nilang i-block. Pwede talaga tayong itong Philippines, itong mga areas na to, Indonesia, kaya tayong ma-block from west side. Gamit kung makokontrol talaga ng China itong West Philippine Sea, itong South China Sea area. Kaya na niya tayo ma-block from so hindi tayo makakakuha ng support from yung west portion natin. 'Di ba? From allies natin sa west. So manggagaling, makikita nyo, on the eastern portion natin is a vast water. It will take, yung sa regular travel ngayon na straight to the US, 17 hours yung So kung wala na ibang pinakamalapit sa atin is Guam, Australia. Yan, kung hindi tayo tutulungan ng Japan, of course, yan yung mga nearest allies natin na hindi tayo mabablock. Kung Japan, Korea, so, si Taiwan siguro will not, diba? Kaya na talaga tayo mablock on napaka-strategic talaga ng area na to. Kaya niya tayo mablock from the rest of the West. Okay, so hindi lang yan, pati yung Mischief Reef and Subi Reef ay minilitarize na rin niya. So may heavy na dyan, parang isa na rin talaga siyang may command na dyan. Para, if you can compare, para na siyang, yung laki ng military niyan dyan, parang kasing laki na ng matatagpuan sa Qatar, ng matatagpuan sa Guam. Ganun na kalaki yung Sabi ng China, it is not militarizing the South China Sea daw. Despite yung satellite images na nakikita natin na kung gaano naka-heavy yung mga military forces na nakarating doon, nakalagay doon, sinasabi nila they have not yet militarized daw the South China Sea. So, China's facilities daw, China's islands and rays are primarily for civilian purposes, and even if there are certain amounts of defensive equipment and facilities, it is for maintaining the freedom of navigation daw. Freedom of navigation for whom? As you can see, they have, as I have mentioned, they have already prevented non-Chinese vessels from entering the area. So it would seem that their definition of freedom of navigation is only the freedom of the Chinese vessels to navigate the area because they have already prevented other nations from accessing the part of the South China Sea which they have controlled. What is our structure in the South China Sea? Ganyan. Wala talaga tayong structure na South China Sea. Wala talaga tayong structure. Bare pa din. But you see, kung nakita niyo yung mga videos talaga ng islands, if you're looking for white sands, the most beautiful beaches can be found in the South China Sea. White sand, very and it's so rich in biodiversity that there's ang daming mga species of fishes and that can only be found in that area. So why is the US involved? Na-mention ka na, di ba? Meron din silang personal stake because yun nga, yung worth of trade that passes through the South China Sea is worth 5.3 trillion. Diba? Out of that, 1.2 trillion yung US traded goods. That is why the US wants it to remain part of the international waters. So, again, it is so close to the Philippines and we are an ally of the US. That's why the US is keeping an eye on China. Okay, so we have a mutual defense treaty from the US. And the US constantly naman, lagi niya sinasabi that they will come to our defense should it be necessary. The Philippines has also provided US also provided the Philippines with high-tech military hardware for intelligence gathering and surveillance to counter China. How has the dispute been handled? Okay, there are protesters rallying in the Chinese consulate. And we won the case against China. Okay, so the Philippines challenged China's construction of 7 islands at the Scarborough Shoal in 2013, and in 2016, the ruling was in favor of the Philippines, saying China had illegally seized its maritime territory. Okay. It nullified China's historic rights. Walang basis daw yung kanilang 9-dash line na constantly nag-expand. Yung China's claims is incompatible with prevailing international law, especially wala namang evidence that China had historically exercised exclusive control over the waters or their resources. Yung sinasabi nila, mga Chinese fishermen who had been in the islands. The same is true for Vietnamese fishermen, Filipino fishermen. Ito kasi mga islands na to talaga, there are instances na talagang lumulubog sila lahat sa tubig. Pag low tide mo lang sila makikita. So, ginagamit sila ng mga fishermen na resting areas. O kaya kapag may mga bagyo, dito sila nagtitake ng refuge temporarily hanggang mapalipas sila yung bagyo. So that is true for all the fishermen in the area, not just for Chinese fishermen. So, sabi pa, China has coercively prevented Philippines from exploiting hydrocarbon deposits and fishery stocks within our exclusive economic zone. The UN Arbitration Court also ruled that there were no naturally formed islands in the Spratlys. So, wala makakapag-claim ng contested land features. We are claiming rights over that portion because that is part of our exclusive economic zone. We have rights over the waters and whatever it is that can be found therein, we are the only ones who has the right to enjoy it or to exploit it. Yun yung essence ng exclusive economic zone. While you do not own it because that is already outside of your territory, you have the exclusive right to exploit it, to enjoy the natural resources that can be found therein. Yun yung essence ng EEZ. So whoever has, so we are the only ones who has the right supposedly to exploit all the resources that can be found, including the oil deposits. Sabi pa ng Permanent Arbitration Court, China's massive reclamation activities in the area is incompatible with the obligations of China to the member states, especially because they inflicted irreparable harm to the maritime environment as well as destroyed evidence of the natural condition of the features in the area. In fact, the old pictures that I had shown to you before, that was taken pa by the Japanese satellites. Wala nga rin tayo nakuha mga picture. We got it from Japan because Japan is also monitoring the activities of China in the area. The ruling of the arbitration court under Article 296 and Article 11 of Annex 7 of the Convention is final and binding. So what's the reactions in the ruling? Okay, so si China adopted 3 no's: non-recognition, non-participation, and of course, non-compliance towards the decision which it dismissed as null and void and nothing more than a piece of paper. You heard this because Duterte reiterated it, that the decision is nothing but a mere piece of paper, di ba? Second, China tried to bury the issue altogether as if the arbitration proceeding never happened, while proposing to set up its own international arbitration bodies as an alternative to supposedly Western-dominated courts under the existing global order. And third, China proceeded with a systematic campaign to denigrate, distort, and delegitimize not only the arbitral tribunal but also its panel of judges. It even threatened to withdraw from UNCLOS na hindi naman niya ginawa. We are waiting for him to withdraw from UNCLOS because if he will withdraw from UNCLOS, then he will also not benefit from other benefits. He will also benefit from other provision of the UNCLOS, including yung kiniklaim niya ngayon ng mga seabed rights, which is governed by the UNCLOS. Okay, so the Obama administration, they are strongly supportive of the Philippines. So, syempre, masaya sila. They called for calmness and patience, pero nag-deploy na sila ng National Security Advisor before si Susan Rice to Beijing to ease China's nerves. Donald Trump's arrival on the scene was pumped new drama into the standoffs. They compared China's action to Russia's annexation of Crimea. Makikita kung natatandaan ninyo, yung position ni Donald Trump dito is that constantly niyang tinitira yung China. But later on, marireveal na meron silang mga shady deals ng China. Diba? So, sa labas, makikita yung pag-atake niyo sa China, they called yung Wuhan, they called the COVID-19 virus as the Wuhan virus, as the China virus, diba? So, constantly niyang tinitira ang China, pero malalaman natin, ang dami nilang mga shady deals, including si Ivanka Trump. Ivanka Trump received parang ilang patents, China patents. So, may mga, yung mga hotels ni Donald Trump, pag nagpupunta yung mga Chinese, dun sila nag-stay sa hotel ni Donald Trump. So, makita. So, nung paglabas itong decision ng 2016, bumanat si Donald Trump against China. At sinabi niya nga, you are like Russia when Russia annexed Crimea. So they call the actions of China in the West Philippine Sea or in the South China Sea as annexation of territories that does not belong to China. Very strong words yung mga ginamit ni Donald Trump doon, but in truth Japan and Australia, they called for complaisance by both parties. The reality is only few countries fully stood by the Philippine side. So, sabi ni Noy Noy, yung arbitral court ruling daw is a victory for all. It's just so sad na his term is about to end when the decision came out. And napunta yung yung bola sa hands ng lalaking ito, who is not so willing to implement the decision. He was not interested daw on flaunting the verdict, and he wanted to focus on the soft landing in the South China Sea. Contrary to what he has mentioned in his May audio ba? Naririnig yung audio?
Yes.
Meron po.
Okay.
China, it's not worth I don't go to war. So if I do not, there's always war and peace. If I am not ready for war, then peace is the only thing. I will keep silent now, and the ambassador is there, but I will state my case before you. I will never bring the matter, because it might lead only to the suspension of the talks with China, and that is not good, Mr. Ambassador. So I propose that we just have a soft landing everywhere. I will not use the judgment arbitral now, but I would one day sit in front of your representative or you, and then I will lay bare my position. And I would say that this paper, I cannot get out of the four corners of this document, and that is the arbitral judgment. But for now, Mr. Ambassador, I want to just talk to you for the moment. Maybe give us time to build our forces also. We have so much superiority. But if it comes to a parity between as many ships as you have, maybe, just maybe. But if we continue and treat each other with brothers and understand, especially the plight of the fishermen, and they're almost really, that's why they are there, because they are poor. And I know the dynamics inside China. It has been explained to me very well. But if the Chinese people this time might find a place in their hearts for the Filipinos. After all, I come from, there's a Chinese blood in me. So I hope that you treat us as your brothers, not your enemies, and take note of the plight of our citizens. Maraming salamat po.
Marami pong salamat sa ating Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte para sa inyong napakagandang pananalita.
Okay, so you heard the president, the past president, who called for restraint and sobriety. So, alam naman natin, di ba, it is a political decision. Diba? So Duterte is not willing to insist on the decision. So yan yung nangyari. Alam na natin, natapos na yung kanyang term, walang nangyari. He also canceled joint military exercises with the United States in the South China Sea, while nixing plans for joint patrols in the area. In exchange, China has offered a multi-billion-dollar package of infrastructure investment, which never happened. or maybe it happened, but we just don't know the details because they kept the details of these loans from us. Diba? So we are expecting supposedly the next administration to uncover these shady deals with China, but we are not we should not be hopeful now because I don't think PBBM will go on that direction, and so let us just see. Malalaman lang natin kapag nagsimula ng maningil ang China. So the two countries have rapidly normalized their bilateral relations. Ang kita nyo how Duterte loves China and how China loves Duterte. So okay, so is there a resolution in sight? Tensions in the South China Sea have several times pushed the countries involved to the verge of confrontation. We have seen this. We have seen yung standoff between China and Vietnamese military forces. Diba? For the past 7 years, China and 9 other members of the Southeast Asian nations have been discussing new code of conduct for the South China Sea. China says its first draft is ready, but details on what it entails have not been received. The code of conduct is said to be discussed in the ASEAN Leaders Summit. When I was making this, hindi naman siya talaga na-discuss. Ano pa natin po? So, aside from I still have other interesting videos that I would like to show you. I think we still have short videos lang naman ito. Ayaw lumabas.
The South China Sea, a water body with rich resources of oil and fisheries, has been the center of global media attention in recent years. Over the years, China has been building various construction projects on some of its islands and reefs. Apart from meeting necessary defense needs, the main purpose of China's construction activities is to satisfy all sorts of civilian needs. These projects include research and rescue, disaster prevention, ecological environment preservation, and others for China to fulfill its international responsibilities. Not everyone knows that, but China is not the first and only one to make constructions on the islands in South China Sea. Other countries such as Vietnam and the Philippines have all done so on existing islands and reefs as well. Despite that, these countries have been claiming that China's reclamation over certain islands is a sign of strengthening military power. The question seems to be, however, how can China be blamed for its construction activities on its own natural features over which China has sovereignty?
What you saw is an example of yung mga propaganda messaging ng China. So, China is very strong in sa kanilang mga propaganda sa mga youth. So yung mga tao talaga nila, they strongly believe that these islands are theirs. Kasi ito yung mga nakikita nila sa media, di ba? So sinasabi nila, how can we blame China for constructing in its own territories. Nakita niyo, narinig yung sinabi niya, di ba? And it's not just China who is building Philippines daw and is also building in the islands. Pero nakita niyo yung wala tayong binuild na doon. In fact, ang makikita niyo lang na military vessel doon is yung SS Magsaysay ba yun? It is a dilapidated building na parang ginamit pa natin ng World War II. So, kung military installations, wala tayong military installations sa area. So, ganun ka yung mga propaganda ng China. Okay, ito yung sample, ito yung ilang mga videos ng development, construction sa area. Mahina talaga yung audio dito
China has been rapidly piling sand onto reefs in the South China Sea, creating 7 new islets in the region. It is straining geopolitical tensions that were already taut. The speed and scale of China's island building spree have alarmed other countries with interests in the region. China announced in June that the creation of islands, moving sediment from the seafloor to a reef, would soon be completed. Since then, China has focused its efforts on construction. So far it has constructed port facilities, military buildings, and an airstrip on the islands, with recent imagery showing evidence of 2 more airstrips under construction. The installations bolster China's foothold in the Spratly Islands, a disputed scattering of reefs and islands in the South China Sea more than 500 miles from the Chinese mainland. China's activity in the Spratlys is a major point of contention between China and the United States.
So, meron siyang mga airstrips, kompleto ng defense system. So they can, they can survive na sa mga artificial islands na yun. So, okay, so aside from the issue with South China Sea, there's still another issue there's still another topic that I would like to discuss, the Belt and Road Initiative. So you'll constantly hear this, Belt and Road. Okay, the Belt and Road Initiative. So in 2013, President Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, which aims to centralize Chinese capital in the hands of the expanding trade, infrastructure, connectivity of Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Asia, and Europe. So ito yung tinatawag nila that all roads will lead to China. It will connect the entire world. It will fasten global trade. So ito yung kanilang economic and strategic agenda, by which the 2 ends of Eurasia as well as Africa and China are being closely tied along 2 routes, 1 overland and 1 maritime. Okay, so ito yung tinatawag the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Okay, so there are 2 dominant interpretations of the Belt and Road Initiative. So, Security studies and foreign policy experts link the BRI with China's geopolitical ambitions. Second is Chinese state and media organizations portray the Belt and Road in a completely positive light. The dominant discourse is the first interpretation. So that it is part of China's geopolitical ambitions. What is the impact of BRI's infrastructural funding and loans vary across from different parts of the world? The impact of BRI's infrastructural funding and loans varies across different parts of the world. An important and often understated aspect is host state features in which it would increase or decrease the risk brought by BRI's financing. The Center for Global Development published a systematic study of the BRI, arguing that 25 out of the 65 countries will face debt risk due to the unfavorable host state characteristics. Ano ba kasing ginagawa ng China to be able to achieve this Belt and Road Initiative? China is entering into bilateral agreements to every country. Ang selling point is that we will finance all infrastructure that will connect the country to China. It will finance all the diba? It is willing to finance all the infrastructure projects that will help connect the country to China. Of course, because these roads will not be solely used by China, importante rin itong mga infrastructure projects, the roads, the bridges na to, dun sa mga bansa. But yun nga yung isang catch is that because it will link the country to China, mas mabilis na rin ang flow ng Chinese goods to the domestic market. And what will it mean to that country? Yung overflow ng Chinese goods to that country will mean, of course, bababa yung cost ng goods, pero mamamatay yung local industries. Diba? Yan ang nangyari sa mga sa mga ready-to-wear shops natin. Napatay siya ng mga nananahi natin, yung patahian natin dito sa Philippines. Napatay siya ng mga ready-to-wear companies. Diba? Yung mga Shein. Okay. Para ma-implement ang Belt and Road Initiative, ano pa yung ginagawa ng China? Kailangan din strong yung kanyang diplomatic relations with the head of the states. Kasi they will not be able to enter into these loan agreements kung hindi papayag ang head of the state. However, yung mga loan agreements with China are mostly confidential. Yung interests are very high. Plus, wala siyang sustainability. So, dahil hindi sustainable to mga loans to, there is a high risk that the country na the debtor will fail on its obligation to pay. And we have seen it happening. Diba? We have the case of Sri Lanka, we have the case of Pakistan. Sa nearby countries natin, nasa na rin yung Laos, Cambodia. So, ang tanong na lang is when will China collect its debt from the Philippines? And when it's due, are we able to pay for it? These are good projects talaga. However, not all the countries are able to redirect the state's developmental strategy para magamit yung BRI financing. Lahat ng mga projects na to that are BRI finance, it could have been good for the country if kaya niyang i-direct yung mga projects na to towards what is really necessary. Kaya lang, makikita nyo sa kaso ng mga bansa like Sri Lanka and Pakistan, yung overly secretive na mga dealings ni Beijing nakatulong para ay ginamit na pagkakataon ng mga overly corrupt na na mga politicians. So kinuha lang ng kinuha yung pera, yung project na katunganga, may iwan yung bansang mangangapa kung paano niya babayaran yung inutang nung administrasyon na yun. In the case of Sri Lanka, it was already forced to surrender yung malaking shipping, yung port niya sa China. It is now being controlled by China. Yung Pakistan ngayon, magde-default na rin siya sa kanyang loans sa China, at ang ipangbabayad daw niya is yung portion ng territory that is in dispute with India. There is a portion of Pakistan that disputed between India and Pakistan. Yun ang ipangbabayad ng Pakistan to China. It will instill additional trouble kasi alam nyo na meron ng giriang, may existing na 'di ba? Na animosities na between China and India. If that happens, if yun talaga ipangbabayad ng baka matuloy na talaga yung war between China and India. So aside from yung problematic na loan structure na China, tapos yung internal politics na matatawag pang internal corrupt politics. Ito yung mga factors that affects the developmental impacts of DRI. This could have been good if only our politicians are that corrupt. International relations scholarship has often treated China as a unitary actor when it comes to foreign policy. Makikita mo yan na yung mga state-owned enterprise niya, very limited yung autonomy. They would make it appear na you are dealing with a Chinese private organization or Chinese private company, but the truth in fact is that it is owned by or controlled by the government. The same is true with Pakistan. Pag makikita mo sa record niya ng global debts niya, ang utang lang niya sa government ng China is nasa $8.9 billion. Pero yung utang niya with other state-owned enterprise, these are private, they make it appear that they are private companies, but actually they are controlled by the CCP, Chinese Communist parties. Pag pinagsama-sama pati yung utang niya sa mga state-owned enterprise, aabot ang global debt ng Pakistan to China ng nasa 29 point something billion. That is 1/3 of the entire debt ng Pakistan. So tayo ganun din. Merong mga pinaloan sa atin ng China directly. Merong mga loan from state-owned enterprises or CCP controlled enterprises. At kapag naningil yun, isahan. Katulad ng ginagawa nila ngayon sa Pakistan. There are multiple Chinese actors engaging in the host state. So there is a variation among Chinese investment activity in terms of asset specificity, sectoral distribution, and investment size. There is no singular characteristics ng Chinese investors. Minsan sabay-sabay pa yang darating dito. Makikita mo, kala mo, it would appear that they are competing, magkakaibang mga Chinese companies, but in fact, they are all controlled by the government. Magkakaibang agency, may ZTE, may ganitong pangalan, kalaban din daw nila yung Huawei, kalaban din daw nila pero pag inano mo yung they are all controlled by the by the state. The BRI narrative understates the role of SOEs and recipients countries in shaping outcomes. They are the host states. SOEs, private Chinese firms or mga state-owned enterprises, private Chinese firms, host state companies matter to BRI projects. In the former, Chinese firms compete to acquire PRC financing to fund overseas projects in order to profit from the guaranteed material sourcing. So, at sa panglabas, magkaiba sila, pero they're all funded by the state. They're all controlled by the state. Okay, during the Aquino administration, the infrastructure financing was largely conducted using private-public partnerships. Diba? Yung mga large natin, during the Aquino administration, PPP lahat yan. Yung Skyway Project, itong expansion ng PNR, in-inaugurate na lang naman lahat yan natapos na lang during the administration ni Duterte, but they all started during the Aquino administration. Lahat ng mga to private-public partnerships. During the Aquino administration, makikita nyo sa record, majority ng mga PPP partnerships niya ay funded by Japan. So, konti parang 2 projects lang yata ang na-approve during the Aquino administration na funded by China. Ang laki ng diferensya with the Duterte administration na halos parang 90% ng mga projects niya is already funded by China. So, pag lumabas yung ngayon, lalabas ang pinaka-highest pinaka-highest creditor natin would be China. That is kung ma-unearth nila talaga yung extent ng naging mga loans ni Duterte because they are not transparent. They are not disclosing yung mga sources itong malalaman na lang natin when the project is already being implemented. Okay, BRI enables host countries to borrow foreign capital to fund infrastructural development. Geopolitics or international relations couldn't fully account for the impact of BRI taken from political economy perspective. So, may impact siya sa ating economy at the same time may impact din siya sa political landscape. You see kung paano naging soft yung stand ni Duterte sa West Philippine Sea dispute. There are dangers and risks to the Chinese loans. These projects make sense given the Philippines economy's internal demand for services. Makikita na lang natin siguro yung impact nito 30, 50 years from now. Depende kung gaano kabilis tayong sisigilin ng China. But if the war breaks out anytime soon, of course, China will collect from us. If we can meet that, which I'm not sure, di ko kasi alam kung magkano nakalaki talaga yung inutang ni Duterte. Pero from what we are hearing from the news, diba, napantayan na niya yung inutang ng 6 na presidente before him. So, yun. So, good luck yes, totoo, BRI is a death trap. We have constantly been saying that. Talagang nakita na natin kung paano ginawa niya, kung paano niya nilubog yung Sri Lanka, yung Laos, yung Cambodia, now yung Pakistan. Ngayon, tayo, hindi ko alam kung gaano kalalim yung pagkakalubog natin. Yes, ang malungkot pa, itong mga Chinese-funded projects na to, supposedly ganito, pag bagsak na bagsak ang economy mo, isa sa mga solusyon is ang government dapat mag-implement ng infrastructure project because this infrastructure project will generate jobs, di ba? pagbagsak ang economy. So pag nag-generate ka ng jobs, pupunta yung pera sa tao, yung tao gagastusin, iikot yung ekonomiya. So isa yan sa mga ginagamit na sa economics para makabangon. Dapat mag-launch ng large infrastructure projects ang gobyerno para umangat ang ekonomiya. Expense yun kung makikita, pero makikita nyo may trickle down effects kasi yun sa economy. Ang problema is that kung hindi naman talaga nag-hire ng 100% Filipinos dun sa mga infrastructure project, hindi rin babalik sa ating ekonomiya yung pera. Diba? Yun ang nakakainis sa mga projects na to because marami ang ini-employ nila is mga Chinese workers. Yun yung nangyari sa Marawi. Yung mga projects sa Mindanao ay napanalunan daw ng mga Chinese firms. Tapos sa mga kinukuha nila is mga Chinese employees din, we do not know this because parang sila dun eh. Naka-media blackout sila. Diba? We are merely relying on what they are releasing sa news. Hindi na nga reliable itong mga news that are coming from the government. But there, while these are all happening here, hindi lang to sa atin exclusive nangyayari. If you go to other countries, sabay-sabay yung mga large infrastructure projects that are funded by China. I've been to Laos before the pandemic. There's this bullet train na lulusot siya sa mga bundok ng Laos papunta sa China. It's a massive project. It is China funded. Nag-default na ang Laos sa kanyang loan para dun sa dam na finance ng China. At ang pinangbayad ng Laos ay isang probinsya. So sa atin, ano kaya ang ipangbabayad natin sa China? So baka nga may usapan na sila na ipambabayad yung West China Sea. Hindi lang natin alam. Di ba? Ito mga dam projects na to, yung na mga to be funded by China, hindi natin alam. Itong mga PNR projects, they are ODA pa from Japan. So, safe pa yung mga yan. Ang kagandahan kasi ng mga loans from Japan, tsaka yung mga loans funded by ADP, mga sustainable itong mga to. They require na yung government mag-submit ng sustainability development plan. Ang essential nun is that project should be able to finance itself. Katulad ng mga ginagawa sa yung sa mga daan, yung sa yung mga infra ng mga train. A portion of the income or the revenue from the operation of the train should be used to repay the loan. So eventually, we will be free from the loans, 'di ba? Habang ginagamit yung mga projects. The same is true with the expressway. So mga PPP projects ito na magiging self-sustaining siya because part of the revenue from the use of the infrastructures will be used to pay the loan. So eventually makakatapos tayo doon. Ma-return yung investment nila, mababayaran yung interest, and then makakabayad tayo. Ang problema is kapag yung mga project ng ganito sa China, hindi ka nagre-require ng ganong portion, ng ganong provision bago mo mautang, bigay lang sila ng bigay ng pera. Diba? Ang bilis-bilis nilang maglabas ng pera. Whereas pag IMF yan, pag World Bank yan, pag ADB yan, ang daming requirements ng mga yan bago i-release yung pera. So isa na nga dun yung ganong requirement na kailangan may portion ng income na i-dedicate mo para mabayaran yung loans. So itong mga other projects, I don't know kung paano nila gagawin na naman yan. Tapos pag ginawa ni Marcos yung katulad ng ginawa ng tatay niya na yung mga cronies o yung mga taong malalapit sa kanya na wala namang alam mag-run ng mga business, mag-run itong mga ahensya na to, mag-run ng PNR, mag-run ng mga hydroelectric, the more na hindi tayo makakabayad ng utang. Yun. Okay. Kaya na po ba ng ICC na paimbestigahan si Duterte ngayon na nakababa na po siya sa pwesto? Political decision kasi ito eh. So if the head of the state will not allow this to conduct investigation, hindi sila magkakaroon ng access sa records and all, di ba? Then they will not be able to conduct investigation. Di ba? They will not be able to conduct Pero itong partnership ni Duterte and Marcos, I do not expect it to last for long. May breaking point ito. Kung gaano kabilis sila mag-break, we are yet to see. Pero hindi naman kasi itong bond founded on on strong so we are expecting it to actually that is one of the reasons why until now they cannot appoint the DND secretary, because I think some forces are still fighting so that so Sara could get the position. So may mga ganun pa eh. So marami pa mga faction na hindi pa na pagbibigyan. So so baka gamitin ni PBBM para ma-deter o medyo ma-control yung ni Duterte itong ICC. Di ba? He could just allow it to investigate, tapos kapag tsaka para lang mapatahimik lang niya yung Duterte, yun. Yes, there's still permanent political allies, only permanent political interest. So yung mga enemies today could be friends tomorrow, the friends today could be enemies tomorrow, so yun. What options can we take against China aside from constant filing of we should no longer file diplomatic protest. Pero kasi nga nanalo na nga tayo eh. Di ba? What you should insist is that China respect the decision. And if China wouldn't want to respect the decision, what other courses can we do? Pwede naman kasi tayong pumunta ng UNCLOS. Dahil yung decision na yun is based on UNCLOS. Sabihin na lang natin sa UNCLOS na because China wouldn't want to respect your decision, then China should also not be able to allow to get benefits under UNCLOS. Diba? So, hindi mo nire-respeto yung decision ng Permanent Arbitral Committee. Why should you get yung benefit under UNCLOS kung hindi mo nga nire-respeto yung UNCLOS mismo, di ba? So may mga pending cases na dapat pwedeng mag-intervene doon yung Philippines. May mga pending issues ang China under ng Permanent Arbitral Court involving UNCLOS din eh. Yung isa is includes yung issue on seabed. Meron may seabed dispute siya. So pwede nga gamitin yon. Ano pang options ang pwede nating magamit sa China? We could use the decision kung hindi man because mahina tayo, we could use the para to rally all other claimants. 'Di ba? Kasi yun naman sinasabi, hindi lang naman tayo mag-benefit dun sa decision eh. Nung sinabi ng Permanent Arbitral Committee na walang basis yung historic rights daw ng China, walang historical basis yung 9-dash line, hindi lang tayo nakinabang doon. Makikinabang din doon ng Vietnam kasi yun din ang basis ng China sa pag-claim ng paracel eh, na may historic rights daw sila over paracel. Pwede din magamit na basis ng Brunei at saka ng Malaysia. Diba? Kasi kung wala yung China doon, yung 9-dash line ng China doon, di respect natin yung exclusive economic zone. So even Malaysia can benefit from the decision. So we can use itong mga na to. Pwede tayo magkaroon ng irali nga niya lahat ng mga may similar stand like Brunei, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Vietnam. Kaya lang, anong gagawin mo kung ayaw nga ng presidente? Mas pro-China ito si Marcos. Nauna pa nga sila, di ba? Nauna pa nga silang mag-meeting ni hindi pa siya napoproclaim. Meron na nag-meeting na sila ng China. So, okay. So, may questions po ba kayo? Ano ang risk factors ng kawalan ng Ang risk ay magaya tayo sa Sri Lanka, magaya tayo sa Pakistan. If you are monitoring the news, nag-shutdown na yung government ng Sri Lanka because it can no longer pay its employees. Wala na siyang panggasto sa education, sinara na niya yung schools, nag-stop na yung so that we be like them. Nagsimula, hindi tumigil ang hindi tumigil ang Sri Lanka sa sa nabenta niya na yung port niya, ngayon hindi pa rin siya makapagbayad. Shut down na yung government. Okay. So, iba pa tong issue ng Benham Rice as part of our continental shelf. How can we protect it from China? Yun nga yung isang... How can we, How can we protect our maritime territories? Diba? Including the seabed, the insular shells, and other submarine areas. How can we protect it? Okay, naniniwala ako na katulad nung sa Vietnam, kung mag-i-insist tayo at maglalagay tayo ng mga doon, kahit mga maliliit na military forces doon sa hindi yun ataking ng China. Nakita niyo sa standoff nila ng Vietnam, yung pinabugahan ng Vietnam ng tubig, hindi naman lumalapit, hindi gumagalaw yung Chinese vessels. Kasi alam niya, the moment na mag-retaliate siya, the moment na lumapit siya, the more may skirmishes lang. The moment na bumagsak yung it will start a war. At ayaw ng China na mag-start ng war because it will prevent yung growth niya. Hindi nga gusto ng China yung Russian war na yan, di ba? Because it will affect its growth imbis na dire-diretso na sana yung niya dun sa Europe. Ngayon, naka-up in arms yung Europe sa Russia, tapos alam nila na close yung relationship ng China kay Russia, pati tuloy kay China, very na rin sila, very suspicious na din sila. So kung mag-i-increase tayo ng military presence dito sa mga areas na to, kung na natin yan, I don't think gugustuhin ng China na magkaroon ng head-on collision dito sa mga na to. Kahit mga maliliit na military vessels. Kasi the moment na galawin niya yung military vessel, that could start a war. Bakit hindi nai-encroach yung water ng Indonesia? Of course, medyo malayo na kasi sa kanila. Plus, meron tayo yung Philippines as buffer. Pero bakit hindi nga umaabot sa kanila? Kasi, actively silang nag-guard ng kanilang tayo lang, pinababayaan lang natin, nandun lang sila lahat sa isla. Wala namang gumagalaw kahit yung mga nasa Kalayaan Island groups natin. Wala naman talagang gumagalaw sa kanila. Ang ginagalaw nila lagi yung mga fishing vessels na unguarded. O di samahan lagi yung mga fishing vessels. Katulad ng ginagawa ng Vietnam dun sa mga fishing vessels nila, sinasabayan ng mga military vessels. Diba? Bakit hindi natin magawa yung ganun? Pag nakita niyo yung mga military vessels ng Vietnam, so ang laki ng diferensya sa size sa China, pero hindi naman siya ginagalaw ng China. Kasi takot din nga siya mag-start ng war. Plus ang meron din siyang mga mutual defense treaties. Di ba? So tayo rin, may mutual defense treaties naman tayo sa US sa kapag nag-start yung Actually, naghihintay nga yung naghihintay nga ang US, naghahanap siya ng justification. Diba? Naghahanap siya ng justification. Bakit matagal nang tinatakot ng China ang Taiwan pero hindi naman niya ini-invade, hindi pa niya because alam nila mahihirapan rin sila, hindi naman nila makukuha yan ng 1 linggo yung Taiwan. Lalaban at lalaban yung Taiwan. Dapat yan din ipakita natin, nalalaban din tayo. Diba? Kasi otherwise magtutuloy-tuloy lang yung mga bully na yan. Parang ginawa ng Russia sa Ukraine. O akala niya makukuha niya ng 1 linggo. Ang plan nila is up to 2 weeks lang. Hindi nila akalain ilang buwan na. February, March, April, May, June, July. 6 na buwan na. Ngayon, yung news lang this morning that the European Union is already preparing for a war because they know that that is what it means kapag it will mean war kapag inatake ang Finland and Sweden will now be joining NATO, and alam nila kung tututuhanin ng Russia yung threat na the moment these 2 countries join NATO, they will attack Finland and Sweden, so they should be ready for war. Ready na sila for a war. So So dapat ganun din tayo kasi otherwise walang Importante sa China talaga yung West Philippine Sea kasi ano ang magiging gamit ng mga binild nilang army, mga weapons kung mawawalan sila ng oil. All those planes will just be grounded, yung kanilang mga submarines ay hindi So, sa mga last days, ang labanan is hindi yung paramihan ng airplane kung hindi paramihan ng oil. Kasi, diba, paliwala yung mga planes and nuclear weapons mo kung wala kang to power them. Okay, so importante itong mga energy sources. Okay, so, isang meeting pa for us to discuss relations with Japan, US, and the European countries before we end the semester. Okay? Wala na po bang tanong? Wala nang input? Or Kung wala na, please continue watching international news so you can keep yourself abreast with the latest developments in the international scene, okay? Para alam niyo yung mga pinagsasabi ko at itong dangers ng Chinese death threat na hindi lang ako we should all be alarmed. Especially kayo, we should all be alarmed. Magsisimula pa lang kayo ng buhay nyo tapos ito na yung kanina bigat yung buhay na naharapin ninyo because of the decisions na mga bad decisions ng past administrations. Okay, may pumasok ba? May mga dumating after I check the attendance sa 3-1? 3-1, may dumating pa ba?
Paharilyo po.
Paharilyo. Okay, sino pa? Wala na. Sa 3-2?
Cardenas po, ma'am.
Cardenas, sino pa?
Estrada po, ma'am.
Estrada, sino pa? Wala na. 3-3?
Boss ko po.
Sorry?
Nagrampa po.
Nagrampa? Sino
Boss
pa?
ko po.
Ibasco? Wait lang, hindi ko makita. Paanong apelido?
Boss ko po.
Basco. Sino pa?
Kopyan po.
Kopyan. Nandito naman, si Doras ba nandito? Nandito na si Kopyan kanina pa. Okay, wala na? Basco and ano lang, nagrampa. Okay. So kung wala na, maraming salamat. I'll see you guys next meeting.